And hello everyone, welcome back to another Love2D tutorial. So, in a previous tutorial, we added the player to the game. So if I were to run this, then you'll notice we have a player, and a player has whatever we need to be able to debug the player. So you can see the center of the player in case something isn't quite centered correctly, and we can also see the hitbox around the player, which we can disable at any point. Cool. Now whilst that is cool and all, it still lacks a lot. Thus we are now going to be working on this right here. A little thruster that animates and moves up and down, basically showing you that you are basically thrusting yourself through space. So we'll be implementing that today. At least it's not as much math or massive blocks of code as in a previous tutorial, so no need to worry. First of all, we can close this main.lua. We'll be focusing mainly on the player. Cool. Now I would like to add two more attributes here to thrust. First, I would like to add big flame. And big flame will basically determine when we change our flame size. We'll make that false by default. And then also flame, and then 2.0. And this will just help with the animation of the flame, where it goes from big to small and from small to big. So that will just help with that. So first we need to actually draw the flame. So let's create a function for that. So right here we can say draw flame thrust. Now you'll notice in the code I will give you, you will see this. But I actually want you to, instead of going underscores, go camel case like this. I am not going to do this because I am following a script and I can't really change that script now. It's a little late. However, you can still change it. Why do we do this? Because this one here is using camel case. This here is using camel case. This here is using camel case. So we want to basically stick with everything using camel case, except for, of course, these constants. Now I've already scripted it, so we have to use this, but you can still change this to be camel case. I just accidentally messed up. But that will be a function, and it will take in self the fill type. So this will basically say how we're going to fill the thrust on the ship, because this will basically automate a lot of the drawing process for us. And then as well as the color. Now we can actually take this and we can copy that and paste it here, and of course add a comma here. And we'll get to editing this in a second. First we want to set the color, so love.graphics.setColor to color that was passed in, because we will draw more than just the inside of the flame. We'll also draw like the outside of the flame, so we'll need to set the different colors and whatnot. And in here we specify the fill type, which can be either fill or line. So when we use this function, it will either draw a line or fill it for us. Now this will change a little bit. So here we can say self.x minus self.radius, because this will have to be an upside down triangle. So self.radius times, and it's basically going to be the same in most regards. So 2 divided by 3, a little bit different, but still relatively the same. Just instead of 4 divided by 3, we're using 2 divided by 3. Because now the triangle tip will be at the bottom and not the top. So we say 2 divided by 3 times, and we can take this math.cos self.angle and paste that there. And we can say plus 0.5 times math.sin self.angle. Now you're basically throwing the thing on its head, so don't worry too much. And we can copy and paste that. So now we have self.y, and instead of minus, this will be a plus. So plus, and we can remove that plus there. Then it's a self.radius, and this should be times, not that, so times 2 divided by 3, then math, and instead of cos, this will be sin for sin, and then this will be cos. So we're swapping those two. And instead of plus, it will be minus. Then we can copy these two. Actually, we can just copy the first. We can paste it here. And this should be downwards. Then it's self.x minus the radius times, and this time we want to basically set the flame of the thrust. So right here, that will help with the animation. This will basically draw the flame a specific size. We can remove this whole part for that. And in between these, we can say self.thrust.flame, like that. And why did I do that? Let's copy that. And then here we can just replace. There we go. And this will be cos, not sin. We can then copy that and do the same for y, but yet again just invert everything. So minus will become plus, and then we're good to go after we turn cos to sin. And then we can copy these two and we can paste them here. Now they will basically be the same thing, but this time we just go from plus to minus and from minus to plus. There we go. That should theoretically draw our flame thrust, but we haven't tested yet, and that's quite a lot of math to draw a polygon. Luckily, this should be one of the last polygons we draw. Not the last, but one of the last. Now, we can go to draw. Now, we only want to basically show the thrust when we are moving forward. So did we include? Yes, we did include thrusting. So only when we move forward do we want to show the thrusting. So to do that, we can go if self.thrusting, then, and then here we can draw everything we need for the flame, of course. Now we need to check, is it a big flame or is it a small flame? Because we can have two different flames, a big one or a small one. So we can go if not self.thrust.big flame. So we're checking if it's not the big flame, so if it's the small flame. Then we say self.thrust.flame, and you can find all of these right there. And we can make that equal to itself minus 1 divided by love.timer.getFPS. The getFPS is just to basically give us a bit of animation. So in this case, it will be -1 divided by 60. And this will just allow us to resize it for the animation. And remember, this draw will basically also run once every frame. So you just have to remember that as well. That's how we can get this animation rolling. And then let's leave that there for now, and just say self dot, or not self, not dot, but colon, draw flame thrust. First, we want to say fill because we want to fill it, and next we can draw the flame color. In this scenario, you can even make the flame color change depending on its size. That's actually a cool feature you can add in the future. But for right now, I'm just going to give it a static size or a static color. So 255 divided by 255, then 102 divided by 255, and then 25 divided by 255. And this will give us an almost red color. Now if we save this, I wonder if we'll be able to run it. Attempt to index field thrust, a nil value. So let's quickly just comment this out before we continue. And as you can see, we have a flame. It's not really animating, but we do have a flame. And that's basically what we are drawing. And it only appears when we're moving forward, so when we're thrusting. So that right there, if thrusting. Cool. Now let's draw the outer line of the flame before we continue. So self, draw, flame thrust, and instead of fill this time, we will say line. And now you'll notice why I did it like this and not just put it here, because we're going to use it 2 times. So why have that code twice when we can have it once? And then we can set the color, and this time just to give it some variety, but usually you should stick with one type. So if you're using RGB like that, then you should keep it like that. But this is just to show you, you can have multiple. So 1, 0.16 and 0. Now if we were to run this, you'll notice it has a little bit of an outline. Not very noticeable, but it does give it a nicer feel. Cool. Now we can start resizing it and making it feel pretty cool. And here is basically where our problems began. There should be thrust, like that. So I kind of messed up the spelling there. Now if we were to just run this, you'll notice the flame just kind of goes weird, because this resizes the flame. That's actually kind of cool. That's like a sword. I like that. Anyhow, so this basically resizes it to become smaller. Because if we're saying big flame, we want it to become the bigger flame. Now to make that happen, we can go here and say if self.thrust.flame is less than 1.5. So if the size has gone to smaller than 1.5, then self.thrust.bigFlame, because we want to make it start giving the big flame. Why do I constantly, did I misspell this somewhere? No. Thrust, there we go. And then big flame equal false. So basically, once we reach a certain size, we want to start growing the flame. So we're making big flame equal to false. I mean true, not false. Because we want to start changing the big flame, or to the big flame, so it can start becoming bigger. So now if we start flying, you'll notice at some point it stops shrinking, because we're not calling that anymore to make it continue shrinking. Because of this right here. Because we only run this if this right here is false. In this scenario, it's true, and by default, it's false. Now we need to do the opposite to get this to grow again. So we can say else, and there shouldn't be no colon, this isn't Python. And now inside of this else, we can copy this, just paste it there. And now instead of going -1 to decrease it, we should +1 to increase it. And remember, we're dividing it by 60, so it stays small, because 1 divided by 60 is pretty small. If we go here, and 1 divided by 60, there you go. So it will basically increase with this amount. Of course, you could put a specific value in here, but this will also make it grow/shrink depending on the FPS. Not the best way to do this. I would recommend instead using DT, but we can maybe try that later. And in here, instead of 1.5, it should be 2.5, and then false. So once its size reaches 2.5, and it should be more, not less than, then we should turn this to false, and it should start doing this one again until the flame is a specific size, a small size. Then we change back to this one, and we're doing that toggling with this right here, setting to true or false, and in here we're checking if it's true or false, and then executing depending on the size, or depending on if it's true or false. Now if I were to run this, you can see it now grows and shrinks. Now you can make it grow and shrink less. It's up to you how much you want it to grow and shrink. To me, I think that's a nice amount to grow and shrink, but you know, everyone's eye will be different and feel different about it. Now, one thing I also want to do, because that bothers me quite a lot, when we move this ship like this and it goes off screen, I can't get it back. Unfortunately, it is now gone forever. I don't know how to turn that ship around and get it back the right way. So what we should do is we should implement something to fix that. Now, to do that, let's go all the way down to right underneath this. And we can say if self.x plus self.radius is less than 0. So self.x plus the radius. So let's actually open up my drawing app here, because this I can't explain. Pretty simple math. So here's self.x, right here in the center of the circle. Now the radius would be from this part to this. So let's actually draw a bigger circle. So here we go. And then there. Now the radius would be from here to here. And you might be wondering why I'm drawing a circle. The reason for that is, as you can see, the collision detection. It's a circle. This also allows us to get this right here. Now if we say plus, it's going to add these and give us this position right here. So let me actually mark that in red. This position right here. Now when this position goes off screen, so if this point right there goes to behind this here, so off the screen, where we can't see this at all anymore, we want to make the ship come out from this side. So now it's going to come back here. So the ship will start flying here. Imagine this is the ship. Because the ship's radius no longer on the x-axis can be seen, so we can just as well bring the ship in. If you want to make it more complex and you think you have the guts to do that, you can make the ship start getting drawn once it has reached halfway, or even make the ship get drawn immediately once it reaches in here. But that's some math I do not want to bring into this video. Anyhow, so let's do that. So I can say if, wait, we already said the if statement. So self.x, and we now have to change it because it went away here. So we now have to make it come back here. So that will be equal to love.graphics.getWidth. And we say this specifically because remember, the window plus its width is this part of the window. So it's going to be the end of the window. And then we add plus self.radius. This just makes it look more natural once we get here, because then we'll come in more naturally instead of just boop appearing. But of course you can make this more complex and make it work cooler. So let's see if that works. Oh gosh, that's a weird bug. Anyhow, here we go. Ready? Oof. Get width. Cannot call it. And that should be a dot. My glasses obscure my vision. My bad. Now if we try it, let's see. And there we go. It looked normal. The reason it looked normal was because we made it only start appearing there once we've reached with the radius. So it will add the radius to it and then it will appear. So it will look more natural. But of course, if you were to remove this, then it wouldn't look as natural. It would just kind of plop into view. So if we go here, pop, it looks natural, but it still pops into view. So it's not like it's animated or anything. It's just pop. So it's not the same. Anyhow, so there's self.radius. Now we need to make it do the same for all of the sides. So we did this side, but we need to do this side as well. So we can just say else if, and we can specify self.x minus self.radius. We're minusing this time because here we have our ship and here's the port. Now we're minusing the x, so it's going to go here. So this is where we're checking now. And now we're going to check once it goes out of the screen here, if this part is no longer in the screen that we can see, so in the window, it's going to start appearing here. And the ship will start flying here again. So it's the same thing, but this time we check for this side instead of this side. And we check for this side specifically where it comes in here instead of the other way around. With this map, I highly recommend playing with it, because believe me, it can boost your understanding of a lot if you play with it. And since we know this gives us the end of the window, we can just go if it's more than this. And now we can just copy this self.x, and actually we don't even need to. We can just say self.x is equal to negative self.radius, because here we added the radius, but now it should be 0 minus the radius. So you could say 0 minus self.radius, but that wouldn't make a lot of sense, since by default negative radius would be, so if you say 0 minus 30, that will give you minus 30. But if you just said minus 30, it will still give you minus 30. Anyhow, so now we should be able to go with both screens. So if I go here, or with both sides. There we go. There we go this side. There we go. So that's pretty neat. We can do the same for Y by just copying and pasting, and then transforming all of this to Y instead of X. We can still add the radius, because now the radius will add downwards and upwards instead of left and right. And instead of get width, we now have to say get height. And this will basically do everything for us. Now we go here, blip. Now we can turn it around, blip. Now we can't go off the screen, which is nice, because we don't want to go off the screen. We want to keep coming back. And that is all for today's tutorial. I hope you all understood, and that you will be following along with the next tutorial, where we'll be doing something even cooler. We'll be adding more states to the game. So just like with the previous game we made, but this time it's going to be more complex, a much more scalable method. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you all understood, and I will see you all again in the next Love2D tutorial.